everybody. Welcome back to the LTL podcast. We are live, and this is episode 96. We're on the eve, or we're actually into the nighttime here on September 14, 2023. I want to welcome everybody back into the live show. And double dip, 2-for-1 combo deal. We're here. We did a Danilo Cavalcante kind of wrap up earlier this afternoon, around noon time. And tonight we're going to get back into the Idaho case. And I was digging up some articles this evening before I sat down and did the podcast. And, really there's a lot of new information coming out. I believe that's kind of getting leaked out there, and some new details are coming out. We know that the Gonzalez family, the Canodal family, is being featured in a new 48-hour special. There's been some clips kind of floating around, and I've just read an article from Inside Edition that I'm going to read here first. That is haunting. It's truly haunting. The details now are starting to come to light, and I'm starting to really believe all these reports and things that are coming out. And it's giving a more clearer sign of what happened in that house that night. I think we're getting some more information. Now, again, it's not 100% confirmed, but I believe the things that I'm reading and I'm hearing now are really starting to come to the forefront of what actually happened. So what I want to do here first is, if you're watching live, please make sure to smash that like button as you come in. We want to get to our goal, which is always 100 likes, 100 upvotes, so we get this out into the algorithm. If you're watching this live, obviously you can type on the right-hand side of the screen and chat along with us. And then if you're watching this on a replay, the best thing is to make sure to leave a hashtag replay down there. We really like that when you comment after this post. So let's do this first. This is from Twitter. It's a small little snippet from 48 Hours. I'm going to play it. I'm sure I'm probably going to get nailed in the algorithm for it, but I don't care, because I want everybody to hear it. And you have a little section here with Steve and Christy Gonzalez talking about some of the things that they believe went on. And you come to find out, you're seeing and you're hearing a lot of information that they haven't been getting. And I just find that really almost mind-bending that they're not giving any, a lot of the details. So there's a lot of this is based off just personal speculation, or maybe things that they may hear, or puzzle pieces that they can put together. But the article that I read from Inside Edition is truly haunting. So we're going to get to that. We're going to play this Twitter video here in a second. And then I have a couple of warm-up videos to the hearing the other day. And we're going to play that Bryan Kohberger hearing about cameras in the courtroom. So I have not fully listened to that. I wanted to do it organically with all of you. I'm sure you all here have had more time than I have over the past couple of days to listen to that hearing, but we'll go through that towards the end of the show. But let's pull up the Twitter video here. This is a clip from 48 Hours. And it's about a minute and a half. And this is going to be a new 48-hour special that is going to be coming out.
He was there to kill right now. Where did this come from?
It's just, it's crazy. So that's going to be a 48-hour special. It's, this case is haunting. And it's haunted me for, day one since I've been covering this. And, the biggest mystery to me, and I think everybody can agree out there, is the two things. What is the connection, and what went on in that home that night? I think that is the two things that we all want to know. And I think that's why we're anticipating this court case, where the state is going to get up and make the opening statement and start filling in all those blanks for us, giving the information that we've been looking for all along. And this case haunts me every night. I think about this case every day, every night. And yeah, I took a break from it probably for about 2 weeks, because we covered, Danilo Cavalcante, but I needed that mental break. but now starting to ramp up and gear up again. This really, it starts coming to the forefront of your brain again. And as I was talking about that Inside Edition article, and I'm going to pull that up now, I'm going to read through that. I mean, it's truly, truly haunting article. If you haven't read it yet, if you haven't seen it. So let me pull that up here. This is from Inside Edition. And it goes on to say, I just want to make sure we're in good spot here. It goes on to say, Bryan Kohberger trial, Kaylee Gonzalez fought killer after waking up to Madison Mogen murder, parents say. I mean, it's haunting. So this was written today at 1:39 p.m. and there is a quote. The bed was up against the wall. The headboard was touching the wall, and the left side of the bed was touching the wall. And we believe that Maddie was on the outside and Kaylee was on the inside, says Christy Gonzalez. She was trapped. At least 2 of the alleged victims in the Bryan Kohberger murder case attempted to fight off the murder suspect on the night they were stabbed to death, according to family members. The parents of Kaylee Gonzalez and Xander Knodel tell 48 Hours that the 2 women attempted to escape their killer by fighting him off inside their off-campus home at the University of Idaho. Steve Gonzalez, the father of Kaylee, says that the coroner determined that Madison Mogen died first, following by his daughter. Kaylee and Madison had been lifelong best friends and were sleeping in Kaylee's bed that night on the 3rd floor, while Xana and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, were on the 2nd floor bedrooms. There's evidence to show that she was awakened and tried to get out of that situation. She was assaulted and stabbed, Gonzalez tells 48 Hours. Xana's father, Jeffrey Knodel, says in this interview that he believes his daughter tried to fight off her killer. In Kaylee's case, in her inability to get out of the situation was due in a large part to the fact that she found herself cornered by her killer, says her mother. I'm literally getting like goosebumps right now. The bed was up against the wall. The headboard was touching the wall, and the left side of the bed was touching the wall. And she believes, that Maddie was on the outside and Kaylee was on the inside, says Christy Gonzalez. The way the bed was set up, she was trapped. She also believes that the killer only intended to murder 1 victim, not 4. Kaylee's parents also shared in their interview that they believe, and this is crazy, that they believe Kohberger had been to the house before and said they have evidence that shows he followed Instagram accounts of Kaylee and Madison. And this is really the first time that the Gonzalez family now is coming forward and getting it out there into the media with the things that they know. Now, we know in the past, and they've been kind of the voice of the victims' families. I won't say for all of them, but especially for their daughter. And they've said things for the Knodel family as well, too. Madison as well, too. But we're getting a little bit more information now as to things that they believe or may have known or what they know. And it's apparently it's starting to come out. So it says they have evidence to show that he followed the Instagram accounts of Kaylee and Madison. Kohberger's defense team has denied the court filings that there is any connection between their client and the 4 murder victims. Kohberger told a previous public defender that he expects to be exonerated at trial. In May, he declined to enter a plea after being formally charged with 4 counts of murder. The judge in this case entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. Now, let me go back to this because I was just thinking about this. Kohberger told his previous public defender that he expects to be exonerated at trial. So let's put that in perspective. Now, out there, there's a lot of people saying, or his defense team keeps saying, that there's not any evidence pointing. Maybe, and let's just throw a maybe out there. Let's speculate that he thinks that he was so good at burying the evidence in this case. We don't know where the murder weapon is. Apparently, right now, all we know is that there's no victim DNA, there's no blood, nothing in that car. We don't know that for sure, but let's just say there isn't. Let's say that he had that month time to clean that car, clean his tracks. The only thing that maybe maybe he's forensically wiped everything as well. We know that he has a little bit of an upper edge because he's got a PhD in criminology. But I think the thing that sits in the back of his mind, and I think the thing that probably would have cleared him if it wasn't found, is that knife sheath with that DNA on it. They're still going to have to answer for that. And they're still going to have to put in perspective how it got there. And the only person that was in and around those victims when they died, according to the DNA in that knife sheath, was Bryan C. Kohberger. And I think that's where he sits and he goes, I fucked up. I left that behind. And I think that he was out to probably try to do the perfect crime. So his defense team questioned the strength of the case against their client in a filing back in June, claiming that the DNA of 3 other men had been discovered at the murder scene. The filing also claims that there is a total lack of DNA evidence from the victims of Mr. Kohberger's apartment, home, office, or vehicle. Another piece of evidence that the defense says is lacking is the identification of the suspect's car. The probable cause affidavit references a white sedan, but makes no mention of the model or make. J. Weston Logston, attorney for Kohberger, says that there is only one sighting of a vehicle that is certainly a white or a Honda Elantra. Kohberger's defense team did not respond to a request for comment. A gag order prohibits his attorney from speaking publicly about their client in this case. To see more interviews the night of the victim family murders, tune in on 48 Hour Special, The Night of the Idaho Murders, airing Saturday, September 16th at 9 Central on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. You damn well know I'm going to watch that. You damn well know I'll be watching that. But it's just truly haunting, some of the details now that are coming out. And I believe a lot of it. And I still believe, my heart of hearts, that Bryan Kohberger is the person that allegedly did this. Again, he is innocent until proven guilty. I understand that. But the evidence, in my opinion, leans very strong towards him being the person that did this. So let me get some pre-warm-up videos here before we get into the hearing. And I just want to appreciate everybody welcome everybody into the chat. Thank you for being here on this evening. And I hope you find some really good value in this podcast this evening. So let's play this from News Nation.
Prosecution want cameras barred from the courtroom during Bryan Kohberger's upcoming murder trial, but for very different reasons. An Idaho judge will listen to arguments from both sides at the hearing tomorrow. Kohberger is accused of killing 4 University of Idaho college students last November. The murders put the entire college town on edge, and the story made national headlines as police searched for the killer for more than 6 weeks and finally arrested him all the way on the East Coast. Now all eyes are on his upcoming trial, and News Nation's Brian Enton is live in Idaho ahead of the hearing. Brian, cameras have been a huge source of debate in other big murder cases. We saw what a pivotal case it played in the recent Alex Murdaugh case. What's going to happen here?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It's sort of a wild card here in Idaho. You remember the Lori Vallow case that you covered very closely, Elizabeth. They didn't allow cameras during the trial. It was only an audio feed that was released at the end of court every day. So there was no live stream. I could see that possibly happening here. It's interesting that both the defense and the prosecution both don't want cameras. The defense says that it's a violation of Bryan Kohberger's constitutional rights, that the cameras are zooming in on Kohberger too much, that it could taint the jury pool. The prosecution has different reasoning. They say that they're concerned that it could actually scare witnesses away, that they won't want to testify in front of the cameras, especially emotional witnesses like the surviving roommate. But the wild card here that's interesting is I got a new statement from the families, the Gonzalez family and the Kernodle family. I want to read you what they say. They want the cameras, Elizabeth. They say it is vitally important that this trial be open to the public to view and watch. There is an enormous amount of media coverage about the case, some good, some bad. And with that comes the responsibility of the court to ensure a fair trial. They have told me, Elizabeth, that they feel like there's already been too much secrecy surrounding this entire trial, and they want the cameras to stay.
When will the judge be expected to make a ruling on this?
That's a good question. So the hearing is tomorrow afternoon. We'll, of course, be at the hearing. He could possibly rule at the end of the hearing. He could take it under advisement and rule in a couple of weeks. We're just not sure yet.
And I'm just curious, the defense is against it because it might taint the jury pool, but the jury will already been seated. So why are they still arguing that this is prejudicial in some way?
Well, they want the cameras out now, Elizabeth. This isn't just for the trial. They're talking all of these pre-trial hearings. They feel like all of them being televised, and they're really upset about the cameras being able to zoom in on Kohberger. They feel like that could taint the potential jury pool. Everyone at home watching these hearings, they don't think that they should be able to see Kohberger right now.
And very quickly, Brad, I know you've got some news on the death penalty, which is by firing squad in Idaho.
So if anybody's looking up and has been asking about 1122 King Road, it's still standing. It's still there. So this is current. So it is still there. It looks like the security team still behind it, guarding the house.
It is, which is interesting. There's a potential firing squad if the drugs for lethal injection are not available. We have learned from the Department of Corrections here in Idaho that they're already starting the process of planning the chamber where this firing squad will be used. That brings up a whole nother set of questions in terms of the jury selection process. It's already hard to find jurors in a death penalty case. Now, firing squad could actually come into play.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching.
All right, let's get into this next video here, and then we'll get into the hearing here in a minute. Let's see. Let's play this one.
Bryan
News Nation
Kohberger
again.
set to be back in an Idaho courtroom tomorrow. The question, whether the judge will allow a camera in the courtroom for his upcoming trial for the murders of those 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, Xander Kernodle, and Madison Mogen. Both the defense and the prosecution seem to agree they don't want cameras in the court over the strenuous objections of various media organizations, and I'll tell you who else is joining them in a moment. But the defense arguing in a motion that past courtroom coverage of Kohberger at other hearings seemed to focus only on images of him, not on wider shots of the courtroom, and the coverage so far has been, quote, blatantly sensationalistic and prejudicial headlines and content, and the images and coverage, quote, gradually poison the potential jury pool prior to trial even occurring, winnowing the number of jurors able to render a just, unbiased verdict. Prosecution agreeing, writing, quote, the state is concerned that allowing the presence of cameras in the courtroom will have a substantial chilling effect on the ability of witnesses to openly, fully, and candidly testify about some horrible occurrences. One of those witnesses, sure to be a surviving roommate, who told police she saw a man with a mask.
Why not give the witnesses the option to be on camera or not? They can choose the option. They can just say, hey, I don't want to be on camera, and they won't film them. We'll just hear audio during that testimony. If they feel that they're going to be nervous or it's going to taint anything, then give them the option. Do you want to be on camera? Do you not want to be on camera? Right? I've seen them do that in cases before. I've seen them come up and say, this witness chooses not to be on camera.
Bushy eyebrows leaving the house after the murders. Now, media organizations argue the public has a right access to public proceedings. After all, it is the people of the state of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. And that's especially important, they say, and I happen to agree, in a death penalty case for all to see when the stakes are so high. In the end, it will be up to the judge to decide. Joining me now, News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Entin, who is live in Moscow, Idaho, ahead of tomorrow's hearing. He has been following this case from the beginning. Brian, good to see you. All right, so one might think, because the defense and the prosecution agree here, that there's no shot, but this judge has been pretty open to having a camera in the proceedings thus far, right?
Yeah, he has, Dan. The defense hasn't wanted cameras for a while. There was this motion a while back that the media wasn't allowed to zoom in on Kohberger anymore. The judge then didn't throw the cameras out altogether. He just said, hey, keep a wide shot. Now the defense is saying they're still zooming in. We got to get rid of the cameras. And the prosecution agreeing, interestingly now, but for different reasons, which you talked about. They're worried about the witnesses being intimidated, some of the emotional witnesses. What's interesting, though, is now the families are speaking out, both the Kernodle family and the Gonzalez family. Their attorney sent me a statement a little while ago saying, we want the cameras. We feel like this whole thing has been way too secretive since the beginning, and we think it's important.
Let me just bounce this up. So Heather says, I'm not saying he's innocent, but I can't say he's 100% guilty. Either my gut changed when we heard so much more holes in how they arrested him. Let me ask you something, Heather. And I'm not here to sway you or call you out. I just think let me just give you some food for thought. If you were personally being accused of a quadruple homicide that could put you away, well, not even put you away, put you down for a dirt nap, you're going to be killed if you are guilty in a case, okay? And you have the opportunity to give an alibi to say, I was not there. I was with X. I was not there. I was here. Here are my receipts. I was not there. I was at the Guns N' Roses concert. Here are my tickets. I was not there. I was in Florida. Here are my plane tickets. I was, not there. I was traveling. Here's my gas receipts. Why didn't we hear any of that? Because I know that if I was facing a quadruple homicide and if I knew that I was 100% not guilty, I would be giving the best damn alibi and providing people that I was with that night to prove that I was not in a particular area location at that time. Just food for thought. Food for thought. Okay, let's play.
For the public to see exactly what's going on.
And I was really interested in that. I want to read a little bit of that statement that they sent you. This is from the two families. It is vitally important that trial be open to the public to view and watch. There's an enormous amount of media coverage about this case, some good, some bad. And with that comes the responsibility of the court to ensure a fair trial. The case is surrounded by secrecy. Everything is either sealed or redacted. The family has not received any discovery on this case or any information about the facts of the case from the state. So let me ask you this. Is there a rift now between the prosecutors and the families, not just with regard to a camera? I mean, it sounds like these are families that are frustrated.
It's been a little bit of an up and down relationship, Dan. There's always been a little bit of a weakness between them. I mean, they obviously support the prosecution, but at the same time, the families have felt like they've been in the dark. I mean, they've wanted more information about the investigation. They basically don't know any more about what police have than the public, which has sort of frustrated them since the beginning. And they've felt like there's this secretive vibe to the whole thing, which is one of the reasons they say they think the cameras are important.
Yeah, and I should just say the idea that somehow zooming in on Kohberger is going to impact his right to a fair trial or not is not a particularly powerful argument as far as I'm concerned. What do people there at the courthouse expect that the judge is going to do?
It's kind of back. It's been interesting. Some people.
So just going back to Heather's comment, and I just saw this. She said, well, he said that Bethany has evidence to set him free. Then why didn't he give his alibi and say that? Why didn't he say Bethany Funk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Bethany Funk knows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When you give an alibi, you give a statement. Here are the people that I was with. Here are the phone numbers. Here are the addresses. Here are the times. Here are the dates. Here's the receipts. Why didn't we hear any of that? If Bethany Funk has evidence to set Bryan Kohberger free, and just like I said a couple of minutes ago, if I was accused of a quadruple homicide and I knew someone around me that had evidence to set me free, you're damn right I'd be spitting that out really fucking quick to save my life and say, hey, you need to investigate this. You need to look into this. But we didn't get that. And what was the excuse that we got? What was the excuse that we got? Or the alibi that we got? Well, what did they say? They said he was just driving around. He likes to take long drives. My client just likes to drive around. Drive around. That's it. Drive around. So to me, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Because if I wanted to get my way out of a quadruple homicide, you're damn right I'd be speaking up. You're damn right I'd be giving my alibi. And why did they delay the alibi for so long? Why did they keep asking for continuance? Why did they keep asking for continuance on everything, every deadline that they've need? And then when it got down to when the shit was going to hit the fan and they knew this was going to trial really quick, what did he do? He waived his right to a speedy trial to slow this all the way down to save time for him. So, that's it. That's how I feel. But I'm just giving you some food for thought. Food for thought.
Want
Right?
the cameras and agree with
Right.
the families. Others are just sick of the media in general. This is a small town. They've never had anything like this. They want the media out of here. They don't care about the cameras. There's
What's
a
up,
lot of
Johnny? How are
frustration
you?
I found just in town and on campus that
Never
the
claimed
trial's
innocence.
being
That's right,
delayed.
Carrie.
He waived his speedy trial. It could be a year, could be 2 years from now. I think the town wanted to get this over with.
Thank you for watching.
All right, let's go on one more pre-warm up, then we're going to get to the hearing. All right, here we go from today.
Accused killer Bryan Kohberger.
State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger.
I
could
get it.
soon be
I
banned.
I
The judge
agree.
grants the defense's request to
Not
borrow
hard.
cameras from the courtroom. But this latest legal move, backed by the prosecution, is against the wishes of at least one of the
Driving
victims'
around.
families.
We're all for truth, transparency, the cameras being in there and letting the community decide.
Kaylee Gonzalez's father says banning cameras.
But I'll tell you this, Jude, a lot of people, when they're facing a quadruple homicide and they know they didn't do it, they have an alibi. They come forth and say, you know what? I didn't freaking do this. And here's my alibi. Here's the people I was with. Here's the concert I was with. Here's the plane tickets, whatever it may be. Why doesn't Bryan Kohberger have an alibi? Why would he not want to get out of this immediately and save his life? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense.
Cameras from the proceedings could fuel online rumors and misinformation.
It's chaos on the internet. It's chaos all over the world. And I'm done with that.
In a 7-page motion, Kohberger's attorneys claim camera crews have ignored a 2-month-old court directive.
Absolutely,
to stay
Holly.
wide on the entire courtroom.
Hell yeah.
To not focus exclusively on Kohberger, pointing to examples of what the defense claims are blatant violations of that directive that were later published alongside sensationalistic and prejudicial headlines. The prosecution siding with the defense, arguing it's concerned that camera coverage will have a substantial chilling effect on the ability of witnesses to testify, while noting certain witnesses have already been subjected to threats and harassment. Facing 4 first-degree murder charges in the stabbing deaths of Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle, Kohberger officially waived his right to a speedy trial at a hearing late last month, pushing his October 2nd trial date back indefinitely.
Some delays are to be expected in murder trials simply because the stakes are so high.
For Kaylee's family, every day without justice is agonizing.
When you ask for the victims of murdered children to just shut up for extended periods of time, and you say that you're not going to give justice for perhaps years, it's not acceptable.
NBC News has joined a coalition of media organizations that have filed what's called a motion to intervene to oppose Kohberger's request to ban courtroom cameras. In its filing, the coalition argues that so far, media organizations have followed the court's existing direction and have not focused exclusively on footage or close-ups of Bryan Kohberger. That motion expected to be a part of today's hearing. Guys.
All right, Aaron, thank you. I want to turn now to NBC senior legal correspondent and co-anchor of Saturday Today, Laura Jarrett. So, Laura, I mean, here you have two sides actually agreeing that they don't want cameras in the courtroom. You have a couple of families saying they do. What's the judge likely to do in this case?
I think the judge is likely to shut it down because most importantly, the judge is balancing all the different interests. Obviously, the public has a right to transparency and people want to know what's going on and believe in the system. But most importantly, that judge
He's a big
has to
guy.
protect his right to a fair trial.
He's a big
and, of course,
guy.
the
I'm telling
prosecutors are
you.
worried about creating an issue on appeal.
He's got that secret strength. He's a strong guy, even though where they bill him at 180, 175, 185. He's a strong guy. He's got that super secret strength that I say.
And so if, in fact, later on down the line, another court says, actually, cameras shouldn't have been there, the prosecutors are going to worry that the whole case could fall apart. And I don't think they want to risk that.
Meanwhile, the trial was supposed to start a few weeks from now, October 2nd, I believe. Kohberger's waived his right to a speedy trial, so it looks like there's going to be quite the delay here. When there's a delay in a murder trial like this, does that typically benefit the prosecution or does it benefit the defense?
It only benefits the defense, right? And this is sometimes a tactic you see defense lawyers use because think about it, memories fade, evidence can, get spoiled in some way. And so the defense obviously wants to push this out as far as they can. They're not going to be able to push it forever, but that October date is clearly not going to stick. And in reality, in a murder case,
it's funny. Someone did a collage of when he first got arrested up to the present day and showed all the pictures. He looks like he's 40. He looks old. I mean, this is definitely stressing him out. I've taken notice in that he looks like he's aging quick.
Is not unusual for a case to take to build, but obviously the prosecutors want this to go as soon as possible because remember there are surviving witnesses who were in that house who were prepared to testify in this case.
Another reason the prosecution says cameras aren't a great idea.
Exactly.
Those vulnerable witnesses. Laura, thank you very much.
All right, now we're going to get into the hearing from the other day. We'll play through that, and here we go. Terrible audio. I have not seen this yet. So.
And I'm not sure that
All right.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. All right, well, good afternoon. Let's get on the record, please. Thank you. We are now on the record. Stop. Okay. Only on your computer. I'm moving around. No, he disappeared. Okay, good to go. Let's try this again. Can you hear me? Ms. Beatty, Mr. Nye?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Massa?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we are now on the record. This is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger, CR 2922-2805. Mr. Kohberger is in court with counsel, Mr. Logsdon and Ms. Taylor. Ms. Massif is participating or observing from Zoom or through Zoom. The state is represented by Mr. Thompson and Mr. Rudley, who are in the courtroom, and Mr. Nye and Ms. Beatty are observing through Zoom. We also have Ms. Olson and Mr. Carone representing the Media Coalition, and Ms. Towler is court reporter. So welcome back, everybody. And I think what we need to do is first address the motion to intervene. So, Ms. Olson, is that for you?
It is, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, as with the motion that proposed interveners filed before the court, we seek to intervene for the limited purpose of opposing the defendant's motion to remove cameras from the courtroom. It's our position that the proposed interveners are the ones who are most affected by that particular motion. And in light of the court having asked us, essentially the same group of interveners, to weigh in on this issue before, we would seek to intervene again just for that limited purpose of opposing removing cameras from the courtroom. I think it's in the court's discretion to do so.
All right, thank you. So I see this. Oh, don't go away. No, I want to talk to you about this because I think that, well, I'm not sure, okay, that this is the same intervention as we had the first round. I think this is a different situation. And I think some of your clients kind of jumped the gun a little bit, thinking that they are interventions or interveners. And I mean, you know, this was filed on August 30, 2023, so we really haven't had a chance to talk about this. And I haven't addressed it in court, as you know. So, and we already started with the merits, okay, before I have approved the intervention. So my issue first is really on the standing, because the first round had something to do with Constitution, state Constitution, U.S. Constitution, and I'm not sure that applies in this situation under Rule 45, and I think that the Supreme Court, the Idaho Supreme Court, sort of addressed that a little bit in the former motion for mandamus. So, do you want to address that, the standing issue first?
Sure, Your Honor. With respect to the Supreme Court's decision, when we filed the petition in front of it back in January, I think they said that the media has the right and should be able to intervene when there are issues related to First Amendment issues and access issues. And Your Honor, I would submit that, and we understand that ICAR 45 is absolutely the governing piece of law on this. But when we talk about press access to the proceedings, cameras in the courtroom, I would submit, Your Honor, are part of that press access to the proceedings because it's the cameras in the courtroom, it's the ability to have pool coverage, it's the ability to have still photographers that provide access to a much greater number of people than even having just the reporters who are going to write things down and post stories after the fact. It allows sort of that broader access that allows people to see sort of firsthand what is happening, and we think that's an important First Amendment right, Your Honor.
That's a First Amendment right to have cameras in the courtroom?
No, Your Honor. Press access is absolutely, and public access, I think, is absolutely a First Amendment right.
So the press and the public have full access to this courtroom?
I agree, Your Honor. Having cameras in the courtroom, having still photographers, having live coverage allows that public access to be much greater than it is through just having people having to travel to Moscow, having to come into this particular courtroom, Your Honor.
That has no implication for the United States Constitution or the Idaho Constitution. I just want to clear this issue up in terms of what the standing is.
Your Honor, I respectfully disagree because I think that the First Amendment and the Idaho Constitution both contemplate this right broad access piece of it. And I think there's an argument to be made that having cameras in the courtroom takes a step from that right of public access and makes it more open to additional people. So I think there is a First Amendment interest there. It's certainly not as strong as, for example, if the proceedings, there was some sort of order to close the proceedings or no journalist could come into the courtroom. I think that would be a far more significant problem, Your Honor. But I think in terms of First Amendment interest, the broader, and maybe because there are some access already, the First Amendment interests are smaller, but I think there is a First Amendment interest in having broad access to the court proceedings. I think it's also in the interest of the court, Your Honor, to make that access as broad as possible, because we're unfortunately in a day and age where for some people, if you can't see it, you don't believe it, or if you can't see it, it didn't happen. And there's an increasing need for people to see for themselves precisely what's going on inside the courtrooms of this country.
Are there cases that support that?
That support cameras in the courtroom?
No. And that is basically constitutional law.
Well, Your Honor, I would say that the line of cases that we both cited, Estes in Chandler versus Florida, says that there's no prohibition on having cameras not in the courtroom. There is not a case that says flat out, under the First Amendment, there is a right to have cameras in the courtroom.
Okay. Well, I understand that. Let me, because I was looking back at this decision that the Idaho Supreme Court made, and it does say that petitioners, meaning you in that case, or your clients, I should say, are correct that Idaho's rules of criminal procedure do not provide a specific mechanism for third parties to intervene in a criminal case. Likewise, the federal rules of criminal procedure do not provide for a motion to intervene in a criminal case brought by the United States. Of course, we know that well. It says, however, both state and federal courts often permit the media to intervene in criminal cases on a limited basis, or at least file a motion as interested parties in the defense of public access and free speech, including in Idaho. So I think, we're on the same page on that, and I understand that. This idea of intervention specifically versus as an interested party, because I know in the Daybell case, the media was characterized as interested parties. I'm just not sure that we get all the way to intervention, because historically anyway, my understanding of the rules is intervention means you are really a party in the case. And that gives you significantly more access. I'm thinking about this more as an amicus brief or presentation, because I'm willing to hear it. I'm willing to read the briefs. I think that's important, but I'm not necessarily comfortable going to call it all, or the media coalition, to be interventions. So do you see a difference there?
Your Honor, I understand the difference, the distinction that the court is making. That's why our motion to intervene has always been for a limited purpose. And full candor, this was a difficult one to sort of try to solve procedurally. It's been my experience in Idaho state courts that rules and cases are read very literally, and we couldn't find a rule, so that's why we went to the Supreme Court to begin with, because there wasn't a rule that allowed us to do that. And I think for purposes of the proposed interveners, the media coalition in this case, that being allowed to present its argument to this court, whether it's as interveners for a very limited purpose, and that's without a rule, that's typically, I think, how you would get into a case. I was trying to liken this to motion to quash a third-party subpoena, but there's a rule that allows you to come in and challenge that. So when there was no rule, we were trying to identify, well, what is the procedural mechanism? And intervention is typically, certainly there's a civil analog, and there's a way to, that's just the analog that we requested from the court before. We think it's consistent with what the Supreme Court said in the case that it decided in April. But if the court does not want to give us intervention status. I remember we had that discussion a little bit last time, and we asked you to sign the order, so in part that would be precedent for us to do this, and you did.
Yeah.
But
Everybody agreed, so I signed it. But now I've thought more deeply about it.
Yeah, and I think if the court would rather the media coalition appear as interested parties, I mean, that would also serve the media coalition, and we'd be happy to present argument just as interested parties so that there is some entity speaking for continued access in the courtroom.
Okay, and I could even label you as media coalition.
That would be fine with us, I think, Your Honor.
Okay, great. And there is some language, and I don't need to read it now, on page 14 and page 15, that kind of caution going too far with intervention, or what we call it. And I'm trying to clarify this a little bit. I think the Supreme Court is trying to clarify it a bit in criminal cases. And my reading of this is they really don't want the media to just be coming into the middle of criminal cases to, I guess, exercise their concerns.
And I don't think the media wants to either, Your Honor. I think both with the initial motion to intervene and the issue that was raised last time about the non-dissemination order, and for this issue with respect to cameras in the courtroom, those are both about sort of fundamental access to the sources of information that this trial, this proceeding are really all about. And so that's it. I think the media doesn't want to have to, they don't have to pay me, Mr. Colon, every time they want to make an argument in court, and we don't think that would be appropriate either. It's just those issues that really fundamentally affect what sources of information they can access in the process of reporting on this court, Your Honor.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'll give you first. Mr. Rudley?
Yeah. Well, Your Honor, the state has no objection to either classification of the media for the limited purpose of helping the court decide this issue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rudley. Okay, Mr. Logston?
We're not going to object, obviously, to hearing from the media, and I certainly understand the court's concern, and it's interesting, but and yet, so long as I guess they're not filing things willy-nilly and making discovery requests, I'm not terribly concerned about how they're being.
Great, thank you. Maybe I'm just being a little nerdy about, the rules and, even the history in Idaho, and also relying on some of the language in the petition for writ of mandamus that the Supreme Court issued on, I guess it was April 24, 2023. So I really think it's more appropriate, and I looked into this to some level, and to sort of an amicus brief, but not considered as a party, as an intervention, but sort of a presentation or brief addressing particular issues of interest that are important. No question about that. So that's how I'm going to view this, and I'm going to deny the motion to be for intervention. I don't know why I'm having part of that, but however, I will certainly consider the arguments, consider the briefs, and I will consider that while balancing the concerns of both the state and the defendant too. So let's move then to the arguments on cameras in the courtroom, and we'll start with Mr. Kohberger's team, and I believe that's also going to be you, Mr. Logston.
Yes, sir. Sure, I don't intend to take a lot of time. We've briefed this. Moreover, we somewhat argued it a few months back. I think our position is that the court, I think, understands our concerns about turning this into a spectacle, the way that that may prejudice the public against our client, the way in which that dehumanizes people constantly shown, and turn this into more of a TV show drama than a court proceeding, which is what it is. And I think everyone understands that. Our concern is that since that time, it doesn't seem like much has changed. The media's argument, as far as I can understand it, is that the cameramen that are here are doing their jobs well. There are editors for various organizations, or people on social media that take those images and then do things with them that we may not like. And that if the court removes the cameras, presumably those people will just use older images, and we want to perfect things all very far. Our position is that removal of the cameras does two things. One, it stops new images, and I don't think we can underestimate the power of novelty when it comes to what the public is interested in. Use of old pictures becomes so hum. There's a reason why we live in a world of memes where people are constantly trading around pictures. They quickly get old. There's a new one. It seems like every day there's hundreds of brand new images. So the concept of removing this sort of almost sideshow from what's being put out there, we think would be an important way to kind of take away the sensationalization of this case and just kind of reduce it to hopefully the words on the page. And if they're using old photos, etc., we can't stop them. But we just don't see that as being as big an issue as a constant stream of new images that are being manipulated, etc., to make viral content, what have you. Our secondary point is just that we don't like where the camera's currently sitting, because it looks like where I'm sitting and my laptop. I got one of these fun screens so that if you look at it from the side, you can't quite see what I'm doing anymore. But it's a distraction for us because we feel like essentially there's a camera right over our shoulder, and we certainly understand they're not zooming in on what we're doing. But I think we've already seen that once they make these images and they pass them around, I mean, they're all like cameras, and somebody else could presumably do that. And so that causes us quite a bit of concern as well. So if the court decides that removal of the camera isn't necessary, we do have, I think, a bigger concern of just making sure that they're set someplace where we don't have images that are really just what we're working on during the case. And I don't really have much else to report unless there are questions.
I have one comment or question, because in one of your briefs, I know I've had two sequences of briefs because we had this earlier, but this was a newer one where you were saying, well, this is a quote, were it only the kind of cameras used to show the workings on the House floor on C-SPAN.
I may be showing an age, but they might have better cameras now, but when I was
I'm sure
younger, it was just this camera like way over there.
Yeah, well, that's the point. I mean, I made me think about that, is just plant a camera up there. If everybody can just see what's happening from the back of the courtroom, maybe that can satisfy everybody just partly.
That was kind of my idea, Judge. That was my suggestion. I feel like somebody's going to throw a tomato at me, but that I thought might be a way to kind of give a little and just kind of protect what we're trying to protect.
I've never seen anything very sensational on C-SPAN.
That's literally what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Although Newt Gingrich got pretty close.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, are we going to Mr. Rudley now? Ms. Olson gets at the end of that, and then I'll go back to the parties. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. As we previously discussed, the decision of whether to allow cameras in the courtroom is discretionary for the court. The state outlined our concerns with allowing cameras in our responsive brief and in our June 6th briefing. Primarily, those concerns are preserving the right to a fair and impartial trial for all the parties, protecting sensitive witnesses
had your
who
kids,
will testify
had your wife,
at hearings and trial in this case, and safeguarding evidence, which is the graphic nature. We agree that the media plays an important role in the court process, and we appreciate in their briefing the measures that they identify to address some of our concerns for protecting vulnerable witnesses or evidence which is of a graphic nature that they've done in previous cases. However, our contention is that the safest way and best way to address all of these concerns is to prohibit cameras in the courtroom, or in the alternative, prohibit cameras when sensitive or vulnerable witnesses are testifying or there's evidence being viewed that's of a graphic nature. And I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I think, legally, we're where we were 3 months ago with respect to what the rule the court has to consider in terms of whether to continue to allow cameras in the courtroom, and that's Idaho Court Administrative Rule 45. And I think, Your Honor, when we read through that rule, it really addresses the concerns that the parties have raised to this court about what the court's discretion is, about what it can, how it can direct cameras, whether to be in the courtroom, all of those things, that it can restrict camera coverage when there is a particularly sensitive witness. And I think, Your Honor, what you saw in the declarations that we submitted, the declaration of Rebecca Boone and the declaration of Grace Long, is that these are journalists who are experienced in covering court cases, and in covering court cases where there are cameras, both video cameras and still cameras, and following the court's admonitions about what can be covered and what can't be covered. And I think, particularly, Your Honor, with respect to Ms. Boone's declaration, and Ms. Boone, who is a graduate of the University of Idaho's journalism program, who continues to be an advisor to that program, and who certainly would have not only the best interests of her employer at heart, but she understands this community. I mean, her experience has been that when you have these pool cameras, both still and video, and when you allow camera coverage to the extent that
had
you
your
can,
kids,
it better
had your
serves the
wife.
public, and it helps ameliorate the kind of media scrum is probably not the term that my clients would want to use, but the sort of that big gaggle of journalists who accumulate outside of the courtroom when there is no opportunity to be inside the courtroom, when you don't get the opportunity to have that full procedure. So I think the court can use Idaho Court Administrative Rule 45 and craft a solution that continues to allow the journalists who are working hard to cover this case to be able to do so in a way that both allows them to provide really a firsthand account of what's going on. And again, Your Honor, I don't think we can underestimate the importance of that firsthand video account as well, because we're just in this day and age where people are used to seeing things firsthand. There's cameras everywhere. To be able to really have great confidence in the proceedings, I think it is important for the court to allow some sort of in-courtroom camera coverage of the proceedings. People are going to need to be able to see firsthand for themselves how the evidence is presented, how they want to see the rulings in courtrooms. They can learn a lot from that in a way that they can't learn from people who then are in the courtroom and they go set up outside and they talk about what happened. And so I think that's a good reason to continue the policy that the court has had. And then I think, Your Honor, with all due respect to Mr. Lawson, I just don't think there are the violations of the things that the court said at the outset of the June 27th hearing. Now, I was not here. I read about it in the attachment that Mr. Lawson made to his initial, or the reference Mr. Lawson made to his initial pleading in this round. And my reading of that, Your Honor, it's actually in a Fox News story, is that is that the court said, and of course the court said it, so I'm sure the court's memory of it is the best, but that the court made a comment that the court should, or I'm having a hard time.
Back up. That's what I said. That's one of the things I said.
Yeah, okay.
It was just focusing
Right.
too much in particular areas, and so I was just cautioning the media to step back, and they have pushed the envelope.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Okay. Well, Your Honor, I think that what the media heard on that occasion, as reported by Fox News, was that the cameras needed to show a wide shot of the courtroom and not focus strictly on Mr. Kohberger. And I think that phrase focus strictly on Mr. Kohberger has clearly been interpreted to mean you can still take pictures of Mr. Kohberger, but he's not the only one you should be taking pictures of. And there's certainly a limitation in print media or the online stories. I mean, you don't always have video. So what I've seen, and I think that this examples we provided to the court, where there were pictures of lots of different participants in the courtroom, and they're trying to show everybody. And if the direction from the court is instead, look, there can be no single pictures of Mr. Kohberger, the challenge is, and I think even Rule 45 says this, there are some limits on how much the court can tell the editors and everything, because they're not here in the courtroom, and some of those people may still choose to crop out.
Here, let's fix this all in one sentence. And I think petrified was the person that said it earlier. One fixed camera that cannot zoom in and zoom out. One fixed camera that cannot zoom in and zoom out. This could have been handled in 5 minutes. One fixed camera that can't zoom in and zoom out. Good audio equipment so we can actually hear everybody. And that's it. One fixed camera. One fixed camera. If everybody's going to cry about this, you got one fixed camera, and you can even put it in the back of the courtroom. So all we're looking at is the back of everybody's heads. We just want to see what's going on. As high profile as this case is, we need 1000% transparency with all the bullshit that has been put out there about this case and all the lies that have been spread out there about this case. We need to see and hear what's going on. The public needs to see and hear what's going on. There is a lot of conspiracy that has been put out there about this case. A lot of bullshit. A lot of bullshit. And that's why here at LTL Podcast, all the things and all the presentations I've ever put together about this case have been based off legal documents and articles that have been vetted. Correct information. We didn't get in here and go, it was the frat team, and it was the spider people, and the people under the tunnel, and they're all involved in drugs, and it was the cartel, and it's heroin, and it's this, and it's that, and it's OnlyFans, and it's that, and it's this. You know the people that did it. You know the people that did it for clicks and views. I could have went in that direction too and boosted my channel right up to 40,000 subscribers right away, because you know why? Controversy sells. The sexy titles, the conspiracy theories, those things sell. But I said this all along, and I will stay with this conviction all along on LTL Podcast. I cannot put anything out there with the victims' families that watch these channels and put false information out there and feel good about it where my bed is right there and lay my head down at night and feel good and say someone's daughter was involved in drug and gang activity when I have no fucking clue if they were or not. And neither do any of you that are watching, and neither do any of those other creators that create this garbage content and put it out there for clicks and views and skew the public perception in this case. I'm going to tell you right now, this is how I feel, and it's my platform, and I will put this out there. If you're smart enough to read through the legal documents and put some things together and connect a lot of the dots through those legal documents, this case is not that hard to figure out. It's pretty damn easy. And I'll go and say this as well too. If I, as myself, as the person I am today, am caught up in one of the most highest profile cases in existence right now, that someone has me in jail, and I've been there close to a better of a year, and I have the opportunity now to stand up in court and say a couple of words, I would say, and I know that if I'm not guilty of this, I would be standing up right away as what do they say, like a stool pigeon, and saying, and that might be the wrong word, or canary, singing like a canary, I am 100% not guilty. I wouldn't stand in silence. And when the judge goes, do you want to enter an alibi? I go, damn right. I was with Mary. I was with Bill. Here are my plane tickets. Here are my concert tickets. Here's the gas station receipts to show that I wasn't even in the area. Here's photos of me at another party of people that I was with. Here's the timestamp. It doesn't make sense. So let's use some logic in this. And I understand we haven't seen all the evidence. We've probably seen about 10% of it. And I'm going to tell you, when a lot more stuff comes out, I think your jaw's going to hit the ground. I think they got video of this guy walking in and out of that house. I think they got facial recognition software that they're going to use to recognize him. We just heard about that in the Danilo Cavalcante escape, that they used software to recognize his face to say that it was him. We got some pretty sophisticated equipment now that we can do a lot of scanning of photos, video. There's a lot of cameras in and around that area. And I think this guy was caught. And I think there is camera footage of him coming in and out of that house. I'm starting to believe that. But it's not easy. It's not hard. Don't listen to this bullshit that's put out there by these other channels that are trying to skew the direction on these cases. And if you listen to that shit, think about the Gonzalez family, all the shit that they have to go through that's been put out there about Kaylee. Think about the Canoto family, about all the shit that's been put out about their daughter. Think about the Mogans. Think about the Chapins. If you're going to watch and exhume that content and believe that shit, think about how you would feel if that's your son or daughter. All right, we'll continue here.
Just a little bit of that picture. And Your Honor, I don't think that runs afoul of what the court has in mind. I think that what you've seen is an attempt by the journalists who are here in court to show a wider shot. And then as we wrote in our brief, from that courtroom angle there, I mean, it's, I think I said it's not a football field. It's hard to get sort of the full perspective when the camera is sitting right there.
This is great. This is grandstanding right now. This is all this is. This is grandstanding. They don't want cameras in the courtroom. They don't want transparency. We want transparency in this case. I just talked about it. Fixed position camera. Okay. We'll just settle this in 5 seconds. Fixed position camera that cannot zoom in and zoom out. Even this position right here, you turn the camera a little bit. If Mr. Kohberger doesn't want to be on camera, then we just keep it right here. Okay. Be fair enough. Okay. Fixed position camera, or we can take the camera right to the back of the courtroom just before everybody sits. Boom. One standard shot, clear audio, and you have visuals. And if the if the witnesses don't want to be on camera, you turn the camera off and we have clear audio. It's simple. And I hope Judge makes a decision like that. Fixed camera position, clear audio. Done.
Way to station the camera at the very back of the courtroom, maybe, but those are also the things, like you saw this in Ms. Wong's declaration. The court TV people have a lot of experience working with courts and trying to find the best way to both serve the purpose of having cameras in the courtroom and being able to present to the public the proceedings as they occur, and also not be obtrusive.
And I'm going to kind of go into this a little bit more. Just think about every time in your life that you've ever been accused of something that you didn't do. What was the first thing that you did right away? I didn't do that. I was here, or I was there. I didn't take that, or whatever. When you were a kid, when you were a kid and you accused of something, eating the cookies in the cookie jar, what was the first thing you do? I didn't do it. Tommy did it. Or I didn't do it. Laura did it. Or I didn't do it. I wasn't there. I was here. Think about a situation in your life that you've been in a situation like that, accused of something maybe serious or maybe less serious, and what was the first thing that you did right away? If you know that you didn't do it, you stood up right away and say, I did not do that. I did not do that. Simple logic. Simple logic.
To not cause noise, not run afoul of the court's admonition to focus in on any particular
We played it.
individual. So they are more than willing
We played it
to
before
work with the court
beginning
to
half
do
of
that.
the
They just
podcast.
have to be continue to be in the courtroom, because I think when we look at the full media coverage, they have.
Kelly, you're in the room. Great to see you. I got your message. Just send me an address that I can send the can of corn to. I'll sign it and get it sent out to you. Just message me if you haven't already in Facebook Messenger, and we'll get that out to you. I also have a very cool prize coming up that I think all the ladies may like here pretty soon. It's a very highly desirable prize, and I know that someone will really enjoy it when they get it. We're going to probably give that away soon. So, all right, let's finish this up, and then we're going to end tonight's podcast.
Of that admonition. There are certainly still individual pictures of Mr. Kohberger, but that will continue to happen regardless, Your Honor.
Well, sure. I mean, in some ways, it kind of misses the point, because it's the sensationalist sort of spectacle that is concerning. And from one of your, the declaration from TV or Court TV.
I can't give it away yet. We'll have to be in about a week.
All the
about a week or so. We're going to do another nice,
good
prize giveaway.
Filmed, and
can't mention it yet.
Some of those
we'll do a giveaway soon.
Whether that was a very dignified way to have a trial, and the classic is O.J. Simpson. So they're saying, oh, this is great. This is great work we did, filming this. But if anybody watched any part of that case, it was a circus. So that is one of the concerns. In this particular case, we have a lot of interest, and we have a lot of people that you can't control, that your clients can't control, and they are putting out stuff that is harmful. It's harmful for the case, for this case, for the process to have a dignified trial. That's my worry, and that's my job. So when I have been talking to the media, just kind of, can you back off a little bit? Because I've been very accommodating. And I just start feeling like, can I really trust them to do the right thing? And it's not necessarily the camera people, okay? It's where that film goes and how it is manipulated and how people are, commentators, how they talk about it, okay? How they explain it. And a lot of times it is not very accurate. And I don't watch all this stuff, but I've watched enough to see that how misinformation is pumped out there, along with the images and with the films. So how do we deal with that? It's not the same media now than it was 10 years ago with social media, for example. I can't control that. You can't control that. I understand that. I mean, it's going to happen anyway. All I wish is that everybody had a little more respect for what we're doing here, because it's not entertainment. It's a tragic issue, okay? And that is what is disturbing to me personally.
Your Honor, if I may, I understand all of that completely. I have been in Mr. Thompson's shoes in a very disturbing, heinous murder case with a lot of the pressures that go with that, and dealing with victims and victims' families, and that is a very challenging position to be in. And being able to, I think, Your Honor, Having worked in the criminal justice system far longer than I've been in the position I'm in now, I think that in this media day and age, having cameras in the courtroom so that people can see what the proceedings are all about. And so there's at least a source out there that says, this is what happened. And if there is not that, that makes it much easier for the people who are going to disseminate disinformation, for the talking heads who aren't going to be respectful of the process to do that. Because then there's none of the actual footage from the trial that responsible media outlets and responsible consumers of information and responsible online people will be able to get access to. I think, Your Honor, the answer is not less sunshine, it's more. I don't think we can afford to abandon to whoever the guy on X or Twitter was that cut out a portion of one photograph of Mr. Kohberger and then was glad that he got some call out by Mr. Logsdon in his motion. I don't think we can afford to abandon how this case is portrayed visually to those individuals, Your Honor. And instead, frankly, of having pictures in the court, then you just get all the pictures of people going, in and out of the courthouse. But you're going to have the same content, Your Honor. The way to battle misinformation is to provide the accurate information, and the accurate information is what happens inside this courtroom with the cameras positioned in a place that provides the best, most overall perspective of the courtroom. And if there are sensitive witnesses, then the court can give direction and the media will follow that you don't get to film those witnesses. The rule provides you don't get to film the jurors. There are all sorts of sensitivities built into ICAR 45, and the media would ask the court to use those tools rather than saying, no, we are not going to allow cameras in the courtroom. We're not going to allow video in the courtroom, because then you just don't get that accurate picture that they can portray out there. And Your Honor, I do think, with all due respect to the comments that Mr. Logsdon made in his reply brief, the members of the media who are in this coalition, who I think are covering this trial, who I think includes the news editor from the Daily Argonaut from the student newspaper at the university, they are here because they think it's an important public service to cover the proceedings in a criminal matter of such importance to the university, to this community, and I think, Your Honor, really to the state of Idaho. And as I recall from my comments when we were here in June, I mean, this case has affected people all over the state. There are young people who were students at the university that I know who were affected by what happened. And having some ability to understand the proceedings and to get the closure will be important to them, Your Honor. And I think this court, this court accomplishes much more by allowing the cameras to stay in the courtroom and giving them firm guidance and working with them than it does to send them outside. If you want to see spectacle, I mean, see the 40 cameras set up outside of the courtroom, and every time someone walks out, they sort of get ganged up on. I mean, that, I think, Your Honor, is spectacle. With respect to the O.J. Simpson trial, which is, I think, one of the first sort of highly covered ones, I think the point of that one was too, like, look, you can have camera coverage of these cases, and the person, it's still possible for them to get acquittal. It's not prejudicial in terms of guilt or innocence to have cameras in the courtroom. But I think everybody learned a lot from that trial. It certainly didn't reflect well on poor Judge Ito. It didn't really reflect very well on the prosecutors. There are things that may have been playing to the camera because of that. But I think we all learned a lot from that, Your Honor. And hopefully, changes can be made about where the cameras can be positioned. And there's part of it's the responsibility of the participants in the courtroom, not to adjust their behavior for the cameras. I don't see, Bill Thompson, the late Latah County prosecutor, years and years and years adjusting his approach, or Mr. Nye, or the others who are working on this because there are cameras in the courtroom. I know Ms. Massoff, I don't know these lawyers as well. I know Ms. Massoff is not going to adjust her performance in the courtroom, and she's going to do everything she can for that client, and I trust these lawyers will too, regardless of whether there are cameras in the courtroom. And I think, Your Honor, the public and this community will be best served by having those cameras in the courtroom and making sure that the guidelines that the court wants to put in place are there, and that there's this firm understanding by members of the media that they will follow that. And I just think it's just not true that that the people who we represent and the people who are in this courtroom today are here to make a spectacle of this proceeding. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. So I just hope I sent out a message to the media and everybody else that please have patience be respectful, and be decent. That's what I want. So, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, any response to any of that, Mr. Logsdon? You don't have to.
I guess not really sure where to go with that one, but obviously nobody's talking about throwing the media out of the courtroom or making the case go dark. I wouldn't want that. After all, I think the public definitely plays a very big role in making sure that we all do our jobs right. We're just talking about the images that are coming out of this. Sounds like the court, here's where we're coming from. I don't think I have a whole lot more to add to that. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Redley?
Nothing further.
Okay. Well, thank you all. I think it's a very interesting, really kind of powerful issue that is a benefit and also potentially a harm. And that there's a lot of balancing that will go into this consideration. Of course, I am especially sensitive to the parties of the case. I saw Mr. Thompson kind of smile a little bit about, there were in a lot of these cases where they were sensationalized and heavily filmed and talked about. The defendants were acquitted. And so therefore that proves that they got a fair trial. Well, we want trials to be balanced for both sides. And I don't know if I was reading your mind a little bit about that, Mr. Thompson, but it can tilt. It can tilt a case one way or the other. If the media is, trying the case in the media. And we don't want that because that's not based on evidence. That's not based on the rules of the court. And it can get out of control. And I think some of those cases that were cited in the declaration, court TV, personnel, are kind of seeing it one way, and they have a certain job to do. I understand that, but some of those cases, in my opinion, kind of spun out of control, and that based on the media and how heavily it was covered. So that's my worry. I'm going to figure it out and try to do the right thing for both the public and parties and the rule of law. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Dude looks like he's 40. Dude looks like he's 40. Dude looks like he's 40. 40, bro. Bro, you look like you're 40, bro. All right. Look at the debate going on in the chat. Oh, good. Love it. Good stuff. What can we do now? What can we throw out there and piss everybody off about tonight? Oh, the truth hurts sometimes. Let's see. Damn. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to play it. 48 hours can kiss my fucking white ass. Let's play it. I'm probably going to get dinged, but we'll play it. All right. Here's a sneak peek. 48 hours coming on Saturday night. Is it hearsay when the victims' families are up there telling their story? Is that hearsay? Because I don't think a victim's family would get up there and make a bunch of crap up. So you're saying what the victims' families are, the Gonzalez families, are hearsay? I think you're wrong there on that, Heather. I think you're wrong on that.
On the docket tonight, big hearing tomorrow in the case against the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students. Take a look, folks. It's a motion to remove cameras tomorrow. That's what is at stake. And here is the allegation. The press, I guess they mean us, have failed to obey the court's directive not to exclusively photograph and record the accused killer to the exclusion of all else, jeopardizing his ability to undergo fair judicial proceedings free of undue prejudice and juror bias. As such, cameras must be expelled from the courtroom for the duration of the accused killer's case, including pretrial hearings, as well as the trial itself. I have a lot to say about this. I'm going to hold my breath for now because the hearing is tomorrow. I don't want to prejudice anything, but maybe I do. For those of you who don't know about this accused killer, here's a little more about the man who doesn't want the world to see his face.
You read the affidavit and you just find out that nobody understands exactly why, but he was stalking them, he was hunting them.
The maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or found guilty, is up to death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
This was probably a person that blends into the background.
Yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania. We actually don't have crosswalks.
His neighbors and people who know him superficially would probably never guess that he had any violent tendencies.
It's disgusting to think about someone that used to hang out with all the time could do something like this.
Are you waiving your right to a speedy preliminary hearing?
Yes.
If you got to know him well, you would see layers of things that were a bit off or different.
What I do know is that Bryan did have anger issues.
You could tell there was some off about him. Very quiet, calculated about what he says. Actually very similar to how he walked into court, no different.
I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to...
Oh, no, yeah, I can find it for you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Everything that I've read about Bryan Kohberger would fit the type of person that we would expect for doing a crime like this.
Okay, take a look, folks. Hearing tomorrow to ban cameras.
Thanks, Karen.
And then there's a hearing on the motion to dismiss on September 22nd. Let's bring back in our think tank, Jack Rice, Fallon Stokes, Josh Schiffer with us. This is an interesting argument. I've never heard this one before, but basically the defense is arguing that his face is prejudicial. That's what they're arguing. If the camera shows his face, you're prejudicing him. He's not, I mean, yeah. Right? That's the argument.
I can't see that argument.
Yeah, it's nothing's going to hold up. Let's face it. What this is about is making sure he gets due process. The problem is this is the argument that's been made across the country. And it was always made saying, oh, if you bring in cameras, people are going to start flipping out and not give him a fair trial. Well, the problem is this is happening. Oh, well, this is the arguments that are made in Minnesota. These were arguments made in other states across the country that denied cameras for a lot of years. Heck, even the U.S. Supreme Court has said, we're not letting tapes, we're not letting cameras in.
Oh, don't get me started on Roberts.
I'm just saying.
On Roberts.
I'm sorry, did I overstep a line? Damn.
It's, to me as a Georgian and American, we have a really transparent legal culture here. We know who does what to when and where. There's no hiding because that's how we keep everyone accountable. It's not just the defendants, it's the cops, it's the judges. Unfortunately, lots of people break the law all the time, including people we trust. And without transparency and integrity, the community can't.
I think we're tainting the jury pool right now. We're tainting the jurors.
I'm showing this photo.
Which is more prejudicial, using the photo we have of him in his orange jumpsuit or him in a courtroom with his lawyers making arguments? Let me ask you this, though. Why is it like in every single high-profile case when it rolls into a place that never had one before, and now we've had 2 in a row in Idaho, right? I've been at Court TV for years. So I can't remember ever having a case there. All of a sudden, they get 2 high-profile cases. They don't think that defendants can get a fair trial if anyone knows about the case or if they see what happens inside the courtroom. Do you remember there was a guy, he played football, won the Heisman Trophy, played for the Buffalo Bills, was accused of double murder.
He's a glove guy, right?
Yeah.
Is this some glove guy?
Did he get a fair trial? Was there a lot of pretrial publicity on that one?
Oh, wait a second. I think I can get almost close to that coming from Minneapolis, St. Paul. How's that Derek Chauvin, George Floyd thing going?
Well, he got a fair trial, but he was convicted. The other guy got a fair trial. He wasn't convicted.
Right.
It doesn't come down to that. It's like,
No
why
problem, Willow. Thanks for
don't
being here.
judges and lawyers trust their juries? Why don't they trust themselves to do, what's it called? How do you say it? Is it voir dire? Or do we call it voir dire? How do we say it?
Pettit versus petite.
Wait. Don't lawyers have an opportunity to question all prospective jurors to make sure they can be fair and impartial?
You do, and that's what the voir dire process is all about. You know, you select the juries, a fair panel.
It's almost as if we have something built in the system for high-profile cases.
But this is not going to taint a jury just having TV cameras.
Did the Fatty Arbuckle jury get tainted? No, they didn't.
Exactly.
He was found not guilty.
He was acquitted. And find me a case where pretrial publicity specifically affected in a dispositive or determinative way the result. I can't think of one. There are lots of cases with lots of pretrial publicity, and the mob gets frothed up, but jurors are special.
do their job.
They do their job.
And we think about why we use cameras anyway, right? We think about vest cams and we think about squad cams and we think about all the things that we do to police officers because we want to see transparency. We want to make sure that they're actually acting in the way that they claim they're acting. And in fact, because of those, we've actually found circumstances, Derek Chauvin, where those cameras are the very things that prove that they're bad cops.
Sure.
Great. If we have that there, shouldn't we do that to make sure judges are doing the same thing? Prosecutors, defense attorneys, everybody
And it stops
else in
the
the room.
conspiracy theory.
It stops the conspiracy. And I'll tell you, we had a judge here in Georgia that's no longer a judge because everybody found the video of them talking judge to prosecutor off the bench, making very untoward statements involving a defendant. And everybody that's ever practiced criminal law knows that happens every single day behind closed doors, in the meetings and all that. But
I never did it. I was a prosecutor. I never did that.
Of course not.
Never
no
did
one
that.
would cast those aspersions.
You were
at
that
you.
guy?
I was that guy.
wondering who that guy was.
All right.
Good stuff. All right, let me do this. Do a quick document check, and then I might be closing this one out. Let's see. Here's all the new stuff. Oh my God, there's just so much garbage. So many garbage documents. By the way, if anybody wants to read the Kohberger documents, I'll drop them in here. All you do is scroll down to where you see State versus Bryan Kohberger, and you can read all the documents if you need to get caught up. All right, I'm going to end this one up. Good episode tonight to come back and redo a little bit of this. I know we've taken a break from it for a while. It felt good to kind of get away from it a little bit. So I think my next episode is going to be the Lahaina episode. I just got to gear up for it. I got to get all that lined up possibly for tomorrow night. So we'll expose some things that are going on in Lahaina. And it's just tragic. It's tragic what's going on. There's a lot of conspiracy going on. I don't like the fact that, we heard all these companies like BlackRock moving in, trying to buy up all this property and this land, all the locals that have been pushed out, government's trying to relocate them, won't let them come back in to the area to get to their homes. I think this is a lot of part of the plan. Burn it all down, let all these scumbag companies come in, buy up the land, move in all the rich people, build your resorts, vacation spots, push out the locals. I'm not cool with it, man. I'm just not cool with it. I'm also working with a young man to get him on my podcast. There's been a situation out in Rhode Island where about 93 people have been displaced because we've had some major flooding in and around this area. And their complex, their live-in complex, was flooded. The landlord is not doing anything to help. The state is not doing anything to help. This all could have been prevented. It all could have been prevented. There are judgments. There are actually cases on file right now that date back 10 years to issues in and around this area, legal issues that should have been taken care of, the drainage systems, clearing of the drainage system, upgrading the drainage systems in and around that area. Now all these people have been displaced. A lot of them are on public assistance and have no choice. They were given essentially an alternative to the fact of you can either take a $500 gift card and have no legal repercussions against us ever again, or you get nothing. And no one has stepped up. The Red Cross has not come in to help anybody. The governor has not come in and said anything to help. And this young man is speaking up and sticking up for his community. I heard him this morning on local radio, WPRO, and I'm reaching out to him and I asked him, if you want to use my platform to get your voice out even further, I will allow to do that. So I'm going to reach out to him and line up a show either Saturday or Sunday, have him come on and tell us a story that's going on in his area. So we will work on that. And we'll go from there. So thank you all so much. This is episode 96. We're going to be signing off on this night. Hope everybody has a good night, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.